Seth Godin is one of the most widely read business gurus on the planet. His advice on this subject is quit the wrong stuff, stick with the right stuff, have the guts to do one or the other. Or to put it more bluntly, shit or get off the pot. The chapter says the difference between those who dream and those who leave is just mindset. You crossed the Atlantic before you even really knew how to sail. Were you thinking about it, or did you just go?
I think a lot of it's just going. I didn't think about a lot of things then, really. I just spontaneously went with whatever doors were open and whatever options were there, really. Well, based on the idea of sailing, of course.
Yeah. It wasn't the first time you'd done that.
In life, you mean?
Didn't you leave home at 17 and go travelling around?
Oh, that, yeah. So 17, I wasn't doing too well with my A-levels because I was probably spending too much time doing street theatre. And they suggested I didn't carry on.
What, street theatre or your A-levels?
The A-levels. I was a bit disappointed, but I don't think I dwelled in it too much. I think that's when I got a part-time job at an elderly person's home. And then I met my friend, and she said she was going off to Southeast Asia, and it sounded really exciting. So I said, oh, I'll come. I didn't have the money for it, so I had to borrow the money for a one-way ticket and then make it up as I went along, really.
Okay, so the Atlantic jump wasn't the first time you'd actually just up sticks and left.
No, or the things I did, like trying to cycle back from China to Europe and getting on the Trans-Siberian and or just all sorts of adventures, really.
I guess that's in contrast to my approach, which is a lot more kind of focused and planning, I think.
Yeah. So did you just get up and what happened with your sailing then? How did you get into that?
Similar to you, I'd already been travelling, but in a much more kind of planned way. I bought my round the world ticket. You remember those backpacking days? I don't know if kids do it these days, but you buy your round the world ticket and then you just head off.
Did you hop on and off then as you went around the world?
Yeah. So it wasn't the first time I'd done that sort of thing. So I'd already kind of got into that mindset that you can just drop things and leave.
But the way you did it was different. So you planned it.
Yeah.
And you know where you're going to hop on and off, where I just kind of got a one-way ticket to somewhere I didn't know and then worked it out when I got there.
Mine was very much, I had an itinerary.
How old were you when you did that? And
I was mid-20s, I think, at the time. So, yeah, it wasn't as early as you. You were 17, was it?
Well, actually, I remember being 17 and wanted to go to Australia, and you had to be 80. You had to wait till I got my visa.
Yeah. Can't imagine letting the kids go for that age now.
I don't know.
So, yeah, I did the qualifications. But when it came to the sailing, I decided I was going to go, and then I spent 4 months training to do it before I'd stepped onto a proper boat to live that life.
So you said that it was risk-taking to do things like this, and that's linked to a dopamine hit. Do you really believe that then?
I think so.
I suppose what you're saying then is that people that do things which are out of the ordinary are looking for a dopamine hit, and they want more of that. So each time they need to find something bigger and better.
Yeah, I think any driver in life is like that. Even if you've got a butterfly collecting hobby, you see a butterfly and you get a little thrill. I think for adventurers and travellers, if the thought of hitting the road or buying your ticket to head off gives you that little hit.
Are you saying then that people that don't go and do things don't get a dopamine hit?
No, I'm saying that certain things in life give you that dopamine hit. You've got the psychology background. Did you do any of that? I suppose that's more neuroscience.
It's a good, interesting question. I was trying to work out then, does that mean only people that go travelling get a dopamine hit, and then people that are going to a normal job don't get a dopamine hit?
Well, they might get a dopamine hit by their everyday challenges, but I think people who make these big leaps need a slightly bigger one.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree that everyone's got a different normal, and what's normal to one person and exciting, like just getting up and going to work, they enjoy that. And other people that are travellers perhaps need something different to give them a dopamine hit. I mean, I've often thought, actually, I wish I was just normal and just wanted to go to an office because life would be so much easier and simpler. But
well, they say, don't they? When the pain of going overcomes the pain of staying, that's when you'll make the leap.
When the pain of going overcomes the pain of staying.
So if the pain of staying is so much that the pain of going, which is the barriers, the obstacles, if that pain becomes less, and then almost by osmosis, you will just go to the one of least pain. Do you see what I mean?
It sounds really complicated.
It's
I thought we were
really
talking about dopamine, not pain.
Well, what I'm saying is there's pleasure and there's pain.
Yes.
isn't there? If the pain of staying is so overwhelming that the pleasure of going overtakes that.
I suppose everyone's got things they like doing in life, and some people are travellers and explorers. Some people say to me, when are you going to settle down? Which what they meant was stay in one place. And my friend used to say, well, you can be settled but moving. So as I say, it's a different norm, really. I think you can still be travelling around. That's just a way of life. It's normal to you. And you are very settled doing that. They're not on any dopamine hit. You might just be living your normal life, what you regard as a normal life, and quite settled doing that, I suppose.
I think I did come to that epiphany just on my own. I knew I was moving around a lot, and I knew I was swapping jobs a lot. And again, there's that pressure to settle down into one place, get a job, start a career, and move up in life. And I just knew that every time I moved, I really enjoyed it. Like a new place, new faces, new people. And then it just dawned on me that that's probably just how I was wired. You know, I really did just like traveling around. You know yourself, when I go to a new place, I just get lost. Like literally just walk out there and try and get lost in a place and find my way back. Everything becomes so much more, what's the word?
Alive. I think it's that thing again about living life, isn't it? Everyone chooses a different way of living life. And when I look at some people and the way they live, I think, oh, I couldn't do that. It would drive me insane, but it's just a different choice. Again, we go back to that thing, and not everyone has a choice, but some people think they don't have a choice. This is the mindset, isn't it? Some people think they don't have a choice, so they don't do those things. But actually, maybe they do.
But do they just not have a choice, or do they just choose to believe that they don't have a choice? Have you worked in an office before?
Yeah.
A normal job?
I've worked in an office. Well, it depends. It was an office, but it was supporting people in a college because they had sensory disabilities. But then I think the closest I probably had to just doing the mundane was doing the accounts when we had our sailing school.
I wouldn't say that was a regular office job.
No, because there was so many other things going on at the same time.
Plus the fact it was a cabin on a floating pontoon.
Most jobs have something different happening, but there are some jobs there's not much happening. But I can see why people quite enjoy doing that as well. Because all I need to do is get all this paperwork sorted out or organised or whatever it is. You're still doing things.
I remember I had a job in Brighton. I mean, Brighton's not the best example for this because Brighton's a very transitory town. You know, people are doing things all the time. I mean, they say in cities you're never more than 20 foot away from a rat. I think in Brighton you're never more than 20 foot away from a juggler or a musician. Everybody's kind of living an alternative lifestyle. But I remember being in the office, and almost on a weekly basis, somebody would disappear. And then you'd get an email weeks later and they'd be in Bali or Portugal or somewhere. But then I noticed other people in the office, there was a kind of othering of those people. It's like, oh, those are the type of people who do that sort of thing. I could never do that. And when I was going to go away, my friend said how lucky he thought it was. Oh, you're so lucky that you're doing that. And I turned to him, I said, it's got nothing to do with luck. I'm in exactly the same position as you. And he said, no, you misunderstand. You're lucky that you've got that sort of mindset that will just let you go. And then it occurred to me then, oh yeah, some people really, really find it difficult just to let go.
But is it because they're quite happy doing what they're doing? Because you do need different types of people, don't you? You need people to sit down and get those things done and not keep going off. Otherwise, it could be quite chaotic. But they probably don't have that urge enough, do they, to want to go? Like you said at the beginning, they think they want to, and the idea sounds great, but really they don't want to. And so they say it like, oh, you're lucky, but it's a dream for a moment, but that's as far as it goes. They don't need it any more than that. They're happy then leaving that job at the end of the day.
They'll put that big obstacle in the way. Oh, I'd love to go, or I've got financial problems. I'd love to go, I'm in a relationship. I'd love to go, I've just put a deposit down on a flat. And you could come up with a million excuses not to do these things. If you really want to do them, you just do them.
Yeah, but I don't think maybe those people really want to.
Well, that's the point. Even if the head says yes, the heart says no.
Maybe there's people that really do, or they think they really do, and they maybe really can't. So that's also important, I think, to acknowledge, because there's lots of reasons. Some people go with nothing. Like when I first went travelling, I had no money, nothing. So I had to find a job. It depends how much discomfort you're going to put yourself through to achieve what you want to achieve, and whether you even feel of it as discomfort or not. Some people don't mind not having any money, and they just carry on because they've got something else, a sense of freedom.
Well, it's almost like giving yourself permission to live with uncertainty. Uncertainty is really uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's uncomfortable for me. I want that uncertainty, but I like to plan for that uncertainty. I like known unknowns, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's not really an unknown then, is it? But I must admit, as we went around and the kids often asked us, where are we going, what we're doing next, how long we be here? And then I realised so many times I couldn't answer most of those questions. So I kept saying, well, it's the same as it was yesterday. I don't know.
It's the same uncertainty as it was in the previous 12 to 15
And I think they got used to it to the point where they never knew what was going on. And They got used to that, living in the unknown, like we all did.
It's very difficult living with somebody like that, though, somebody who doesn't plan, because then you can't plan yourself. Can you see how that might have been frustrating for them?
Yeah, but it wasn't really because I wasn't planning. It was more because there wasn't a plan. A lot of the time, is there going to be this there or that there when you get to the next place? Well, I have no idea because I've never been there either.
So it's an unknown.
It really is a real unknown. But yeah, planning, you could perhaps try and plan more. But if you plan too much, you get a lot of disappointment.
The first week we're in Greece, I just happened to be watching Ewan, our youngest, on the beach. And he was 5 at the time, I think. And he was really intently building this sandcastle. It was a work of art, really. And he had his little plastic shark and he was playing with it. And I said, do you want to tell me how you did that? Thinking he was going to tell me how he constructed it. And he thought I was asking how to do it myself. And he kind of looked at me really strangely and he goes, if you want to do it, do it. And it was such a poignant moment because Seth Godin, who's one of the business gurus of the world, wrote a whole book, but he could have just said those words and that would have summed up his book completely. And this came from a 5-year-old. And I don't know if that's just a 5-year-old or whether it was just his character, but since then he's hand-fed sharks, he's sat night watches through the Pacific, treks through jungles. He's even just picked up his little ukulele and walked into the middle of the city and started busking and made loads of money. So I think that attitude kind of sums up the approach to adventure travel, really. If you want to do it, do it. We used it actually as the ident of our videos for such a long time. If you want to do it, do it.
Yeah, he didn't really plan how to do it, did he? And he didn't really break it down to work out how he did it. He just got on and did it. And so I suppose that question must have been so strange for him. It's like, why are you asking him how to do it? Just get on with it.
The concept of planning didn't even enter his head.
No.
And I've noticed that with kids as well. They've got no fear of the unknown. They create.
They're very creative, aren't they? Because it's just free play and there's no structure and no boundaries and no rules. It's just get on and try it out. And if it doesn't work, try out another method. And they did a lot of that in the sandpit. And I think there's that problem, isn't there, of people in companies who have lost that sense of creativity.
Before you should say that, I think it was Harvard Business School years ago. They actually got businessmen to sit down with kids in a play environment. And it was basically to try and free their mind from structure and planning and just be creative, which helps with the entrepreneurial spirit, I guess.
I don't think it's necessarily bad to plan things, though. There's many times I've thought, how do I end up in this situation? Because I hadn't planned it. So it took me down many paths, but sometimes I think if I had planned it a bit better, I wouldn't have ended up in that situation. I think sometimes planning can be a good thing.
I think I've come to realise there's advantages to both approaches. You've got to be a bit dynamic. Sometimes a planned approach is exactly the right way. And sometimes you've got to not overthink it and just jump in and get on with it. I think I've come around more to that way of thinking over the years. Counterintuitively, you think as you get older, you get more risk averse. But I think that actually the answer is to jump in first and then learn on the job. Maybe that just comes from our experience of traveling.
I don't know.
Do you think that inertia is something that sets in, or can you overcome that sense of not being able to move on from what you're doing?
There's a lot of that, and a lot of people like that because they get their thrills or whatever at different times. Who knows what they do at the weekend? So you can't just judge those people and say that they need to get out of that. But the ones that are in a situation they want to get out of, the question was, can those people, do we think, overcome it?
Yeah.
I obviously believe that you can overcome anything.
What would you say somebody who's maybe stuck in a job or stuck in any relationship, anything in their life that they want to make the jump out of it and do something completely different?
You have to be ready to take a risk, don't you? For sure. But I think it's good to have a backup plan because, funnily enough, even though we took a risk going off, one thing for sure to me was not to sell the house and rent it out instead. I know of people that sold everything and went, but I was determined to keep property, knowing there was somewhere to go back to, and I knew it would be an income. Even though it meant still paying mortgage and stuff like that and having to deal with it all, I thought that was really important. Yeah, that was part of the plan. It wasn't like, let's just go and sell everything. I personally would say have a bit of a plan, escape routes and backup plans, really. I've always had an escape route and backup plan. And I think even though I don't really plan, I think I would suggest that as well. Just go with it, take a bit of risk, but always have a backup or an escape plan. How about you? What would you say?
Funny enough, I was writing about that the other day, and I'll come on to that in a later podcast. But when I was doing powerboat instruction, I would have this acronym called PAME or PAME or whatever, PAME. And the most important thing was the E, and that was the escape. So you position yourself, you'd approach, you'd do the maneuver, and then you'd have an escape. And the escape is possibly the most important thing because it gives you the permission and the courage to launch into the first three. Escape is probably the one you should think above all the rest.
Yeah, but you don't want that to stop you making the manoeuvre in the first place.
I think the military have a similar sort of thing as well.
That's probably an acronym that's used in a lot of things. It kind of cushions it a bit if you know that there is a way to get out of here.
It emboldens you as well to do the first three in the first place, I think. So should we end it there?
Yeah.
So if you want to do it, do it. Ewan was only 5 when he came up with that. He hadn't read any books. He hadn't read any Seth Godin. Next week, we've got Go Chase Whales. And we're going to look into the practical side of actually doing what you want to do and getting out there. So until next week.
Excellent.
Bye.
Bye.